Hi, I'm Sarah Memmott, the social work librarian at EMU. This short presentation will introduce you to research tools and strategies you can use for your assignments in Social Work 222. I'll start with a quick welcome and intro to library research support and a tip for getting ready to do research. Then I'll explain the Social Work 222 Library Research Guide, a key resource for completing research assignments in this class, and explain the sources there that will help you complete your abbreviated literature review and history, policies, and advocacy paper assignments. As the social work librarian, I'm available to help you with library research and other questions. You can find my contact information on the library guide that we'll look at, and email me or set up a time to meet with me on Zoom or in person, or use our general library support whenever you have questions. Before going to the keyboard, getting out your phone, and starting to search, let's take a few minutes to prepare. Find your assignment in your syllabus and read it to figure out what information exactly do you need to find, or what questions do you have to answer. Are there requirements for the sources you can use, such as the type of source, the publication date, or any other guidelines? Do you need to do the CRAP test, which you'll talk about in class, to evaluate the sources that you'll find? Once you're familiar with the assignment, go to the Social Work 222 Library Guide. You can get to it from the Library Guide link in this course in Canvas or from the library website. It has key sources that students have found to be very useful for these assignments. They include library subscription sources and also general websites that are useful. I'll demonstrate how to use the Encyclopedia of Social Work and eSearch to find and answer questions about the 4 sources you need for your abbreviated literature review. So let's take a look at how to get to those from the Library Research Guide. So here's the first page of the guide. It has many sections. We're not going to look at all of them right now. I'm going to demonstrate these few key sources. So the first is the Encyclopedia of Social Work. This is a source put out by the National Association of Social Workers, and it is a library subscription source. You won't find these pages for free on the web. You can look at the general subjects it covers. I usually start with a specific search for the topic that I'm researching. So, for example, I'll do a search for food insecurity. The encyclopedia doesn't have thousands of sources. It'll typically find a few articles on a given topic. It may also not cover all of your topics, but most of what you're researching, you'll find an article in here. So I see a few articles. I will go to the second one, Food Insecurity and Nutrition Programs in the United States. And can find the article there. It has some information like when it was first published and updated. I really like that it starts with a summary and also lists the article contents on the left so I can get an idea of what's included and what questions this may help me answer. I know for your abbreviated literature review assignment, you need to find the credentials of the authors of the sources. And I can see the author up here under the title. And if I click on her name, I get just a little more information. I find out that this person is at the University of South Carolina. And I can copy that, or well, if I can't copy, I'll retype it in a web search. So I'm just going to do a general search, Google or whatever search you like to use. And I'll put in both the author's name and the school that it looks like they're associated with. And I am finding a result. that I can click on and start to see a little more information about this author's credentials. I could maybe click on the links to see even more. And when you find an author, especially if there's someone that's associated with a university or a research organization, you should be able to find information about them on the web, on the website of the university or organization they're affiliated with. If you can't, that might give me pause about whether they're actually a real person. But you can always ask if you're just having a little trouble finding information about someone. So that's a little bit about the Encyclopedia of Social Work. You'll get to explore that more on your own. Let's go to the second page of this guide under Articles and Books, and I'm going to demonstrate the first search that's shown there, the library eSearch. This is the same search that you'll see on the main page of the library website, and it does a search across almost all of the books, articles, videos, and other sources our library makes available. So it's a great place to find more information. And just so we can compare the types of information you find, I'll do the same topic there, food insecurity. And this time I found over 500,000 results, getting a lot of information. If I'd like to make that a little more specific, can add more information to my search. So for example, since I really want information on food insecurity in the US, I'm adding United States. And when I put that in quotes, it'll find that exact phrase, those two words together, and do another search. And you can see that changes my search results somewhat. I'm finding some books, and eventually I'm finding some articles. If I want to narrow down the results more, there are lots of options here on the left. So for example, if I'd really like to limit it to just articles, I can click on that option. And there's many more ways to do that. So as I'm looking at the results, I am actually intrigued by this first one. Food is medicine. Sounds interesting. And I'm clicking on it to get more tools and more details. So there are some helpful links, like I could email the link to the article to myself. I could use the citation tool to copy a reference. I can scroll down to get places to find the full text of the article, and I can just click on those to get that from the website where the article is available. And under the description, I get a summary of the article, which again is useful to read and figure out, is this going to be helpful for me before I download and try to read the entire article? So that's a quick look at what you might get from eSearch. Using these filters and trying different search words is always a great way to try to find more results. So let's take a look next at sources you'll use for the history, policies, and advocacy paper. So the Encyclopedia of Social Work and eSearch, probably even the same sources you found there, you can use those again in your history, policies, and advocacy paper. But now we're going to look at two more sources, the policy and advocacy group search and finding government information through the CRS reports that can be really helpful for this paper. So I'm going to switch back and go to the guide again and go to the third section of the guide, policy and advocacy groups. So this search is a custom Google search. So it's not searching everything that Google searches. It's limited it to the websites of about 1,200 think tanks, which are nonprofit research organizations that focus on policy analysis, research, and also advocacy on those topics. So you're not going to find just a random web page by some individual person, but information from these types of organizations. So searching again, food insecurity, and I found a lot of results. Um, let's see, food insecurity among veterans. That sounds like an interesting population to learn more about. And I can see if this looks useful. I see there's even a PDF I can download. It's got information on the author's names. When I get to this website or any website, figuring out who the organization is can be important, especially if you haven't heard of them before. So I can see that the name is RAND. I could go to their About page to see what they have to say about themselves, but I can also find out what other people have think about this organization. Again, I'm just going to do a web search for RAND to start out with. I get linked to their webpage, but I can also see a Wikipedia article could give me some basic information and even follow up the links to see what is the general perception of this organization, what perspective does it take, maybe what kind of policies does it advocate for if it does advocacy work. So back to the guide, the last section we'll look at, and there's a lot more on this guide that you should explore on your own, but let's go to the government information and statistics. So the first link here, Congressional Research Service reports can be really useful. The Congressional Research Service is an office that prepares reports for Congress, so for our representatives and our senators. The Congressional Research Service itself is not affiliated with either the Democrats or the Republicans. They're nonpartisan. So their goal is to provide neutral information that everyone can use about these topics. And when I search here, it opens up complicated search, but I can also just type in the topic I'm interested in and start to see what kind of reports it's providing. So another interesting population, food insecurity among college students. Let's look at this as an example. It again starts with a summary. It's got a link to a PDF that could be handy to print out. And it has a handy link of contents if I want to jump to a particular section. I notice it has a section on SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and I've seen that in some of the other materials on food insecurity. And I might go back to their search and do a search on SNAP. But I'd like to find more information on that particular program that addresses food issues. Um, so I see, I guess it's a nutrition program related part of the Farm Bill. Ooh, a primer on eligibility and benefits. So those could be great sources for getting more information about that particular program. So back on the guide, one more thing I want to point out is that on every page of the guide, there's links for getting library help. There's general research help, including our Ask a Librarian 24/7 chat. That's a chat with a real person, not a bot. A librarian like me, they may be from another school. That's how we're able to provide 24/7 help. It's by working with other librarians. And this is also where you find my information, you can email me. Schedule appointment goes directly to my calendar to set up a time to Zoom or meet with me in person. And one last thing I'll mention is that research shows that asking for help is a learning strategy used by successful students. So please do ask me or other library help when you have questions or get stuck, because we really want you to succeed in your assignments and learn research skills that you'll continue to use in your classes, your career, and your life. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope to meet you online or in person.